Hello and welcome to this presentation. I'm very excited to have you here. This presentation is titled Secrets to IELTS Success, and in this presentation, I'm going to be sharing with you various tips and strategies that you can have and you can use to pass the IELTS. This presentation is powered by Excellentia Hub, the #1 IELTS training center in Nigeria, and my name is Richard Salako. It's very nice to have you here. If you are intending to write the IELTS and you want to ace the exam, at your very first attempt, then you're in the right place. So, what to expect in this presentation? First, I'm going to be talking about myself so that you'll have some background information as to who I am, what I have, and why you should listen to me. And then after that, we're going to have a quick overview of the IELTS, where I'll be explaining the difference between the IELTS academic and the general training modules. I'll also be differentiating the standard IELTS from the UKVI IELTS. Then after that, I'm going to share with you some top secrets or top tips, for IELTS success. Then finally, I will let you know what the next step is. So sit back and relax. I'm not going to take much of your time, but you'll be glad to have watched this video to the very end. So this is me, Richard Salako. I am a graduate of English language and literary studies. So I studied English. My area of specialization includes English syntax, English grammar, English phonology, Then I also have a 120-hour Premier TEFL certificate. Now, this certificate is a certificate that licenses one, to teach English anywhere in the world. So I have this certificate, issued by the TEFL org in the UK. And so this licenses me to teach English, to anyone, anywhere in the world. Also, I have over 8 years experience teaching, the IELTS. I've taught hundreds of people from all over Africa, primarily from Nigeria, of course, from South Africa, even from Arab countries, and even from some European countries, There are lots and lots of people who are trying to take the IELTS to leave their country and migrate to an English-speaking country, and so, have trained lots of people for the exam. Then, of course, I've written the exam myself, and I had an overall 8.5 band, and so I'm not just going to be talking from knowledge, I'm also going to be talking from experience. So yes, I have taught IELTS to hundreds of people across the world. So that's me, and I'm the one sharing this presentation with you. Well, these are some testimonials from my past students. I decided to put this here so that you can also hear from other people. This is Busola saying, "Excellent share to the world, the best so far." Look at Yolanda January. Yolanda January was, she's from South Africa. She was my student in, I think, 2012. And she said she enjoyed the lesson. She had enough materials to study with, and that the training was practical, and many more. Look at Tony Bakare saying that he learned the British intonation. So these are just some testimonials that some of my past students, had shared. Then, of course, I also have past results, for you to just take a look at. In fact, I have so many results. These days, I can't even remember who owns this result or who owns that result. I have so many fantastic results that people see, and they wonder if they are real results. But yes, they are real results of my students. And so I've decided to just, compile a couple of them so that you can just see them, so look at them, so it doesn't even matter if you're taking the exam with the IDP or with the British Council. I've registered students for both, and they have passed both. There's the hearsay that one is easier than the other. Some people say that IDP is easier than the British Council. Some others say otherwise, but here it doesn't matter whether you're taking the British Council or the IDP. We ace both of them. Okay, so here is my own IELTS results. As you can see, that's my picture there. That's my result. I had a 9 band in the listening and the speaking. You can see I had an 8.5 in the reading and 7.5 in the writing. So that gives you an overall of 8.5 bands. So I took the IELTS academic, the most dreaded of them all, and this is my result. So it's really, really going to be advantageous to you to watch this to the end, because like I said earlier, I'm speaking to you from a standpoint of knowledge, a standpoint of experience, someone who knows this and who can help you pass the IELTS once and for all. Then this is my TEFL certificate, so this is the certificate I mentioned at the start of this presentation, where I told you that it licenses me to teach English to, anybody all over the world. So, and that's been that. Now we're moving to the overview of the IELTS here. I just want to share with you some general, information about the IELTS, particularly if you're new to the exam and you don't know anything about the exam. Just a couple of information will help. And so the first thing I would say is that the exam is a standardized test, designed to assess your English language abilities. The word standardized there means that it is the same in whatever country that you're going to take the test, whether it's even the IDP or the British Council, in terms of the way the question will be set, in terms of the conditions of the exam, in terms of the difficulty of the exam, it is the same. It's a standardized test, and that makes it really, really teachable and easy to pass. And so that's the first thing you must know. And of course, it is useful for you if you're planning to study or work in an English-speaking country. That includes the UK, the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, And of course, the exam is in 4 sections. There is the listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking. And then whatever band score that you get, whether it's a 7 band or an 8 band, these band scores are going to be translated into CEFR levels. That's from A1 to C2. This just determines or expresses your language ability, your level of language proficiency. Of course, you can register with the British Council or with IDP. It doesn't matter. The test format is the same. And then you have available test dates that you can pick from every month. Of course, what's the difference between the IELTS Academic and the IELTS General Training? First, the difference is in the purpose for both exams. For the IELTS Academic, you can use that if you're trying to gain admission into the university, for an undergraduate program or a postgraduate program in an English-speaking country. Then you can also use the academic for professional registrations. If you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're a lawyer, and the likes, you're a professional. You would then need to take the IELTS academic to continue to work there in your various professions. On the other hand, the IELTS general training is necessary for those of you who are seeking secondary education, or you just want to travel to work, or for vocational training, or just merely immigration. So nothing academic or professional really in that sense of it. Then the second difference, aside the purpose, is its test format. Now, in terms of test format, the listening and the speaking are the same, regardless of whether you're taking the IELTS academic or the IELTS general training. So what those of you taking the academic would answer the same listening questions as those taking the general training. So it's the same. There's no difference there. The speaking too is very much the same. The questions in the listening and the speaking are not designed to show some difference between those taking the academic and the general. Where the difference comes is in the reading and the writing section. So in the reading, for example, if you're taking the general reading, you're going to get more passages, but shorter passages and easier passages. But if you're taking the IELTS academic, you're going to get just 3 passages, which will be long and which will be more complex, relatively more complex than the passages you'll find in the general reading. Because of course, for the academic reading, the passages are going to be academically inclined in terms of the topic of the passage, in terms of the vocabulary that you will find in the passage. So the difference is just basically in the type and in the difficulty of the passages that you get. For general reading, you're going to get 5 passages, 4 of which will be short, relatively easier, and not academic. Only the last passage will most likely be academic. In fact, it will be academic. The last passage, if you're taking the general IELTS. Also in the writing, if you're taking the general writing, for your task 1, you're going to need to write a letter. It can be a formal letter, an informal letter, or a semi-formal letter. But if you're taking the academic writing for your task 1, you're not writing a letter. Instead, you'll be writing a report. You would have to report a graph or report a diagram or charts, or any graphic of sorts. So basically, in terms of the test format, the listening and the speaking are the same, but the reading and the writing is where we see a couple of differences for those taking the academic and the general. Then some of you might also be wondering, what's the difference between the UKVI IELTS and the standard IELTS? Now, of course, for the UKVI IELTS, it is strictly for visa or immigration to the UK. No other English-speaking country accepts the UKVI IELTS. The UK, just as you have in the name UKVI, the UK there stands for United Kingdom. The VI stands for visa and immigration. So that tells you it's for visa and immigration to the UK only. So it is specifically for the UK. But the standard IELTS is a more general IELTS that you can submit if you're trying to travel, work, school in not just the UK now, but in any English-speaking country. And that includes the UK itself, Canada, the USA, Australia, and so on. So it's more general. So you should always check for your own specific requirements before booking any IELTS test date so that you know which one is required for you. And that's about a general overview, about the IELTS. So let us dive right into the tips and the strategies that you will need to pass the IELTS. And I have tried, there's so many things to show you and teach you about the IELTS, but I've tried to, compress all of them into very short tips that I can quickly dole out here. And I've also distributed them into the 4 sections of the test. So you will have tips for listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking. So without wasting further time, let us go into tips for IELTS listening, So number 1 tip that I have here is this. Answers come in the same order as the questions. What this simply means is that when you're taking the IELTS listening, the speaker or speakers would provide answers in the same order as the questions. So number 1, number 2, number 3, and on and on. So the speaker would not give you the answer to number 2 before giving you the answer to number 1. That's not possible. So if you're taking the IELTS test and you did not hear the answer to number 1, but suddenly heard the answer to number 2, it just means you've missed number 1. Number 1 had been said. You didn't just hear it. So it comes in the same order. Then you should also know that you can never exceed the word limit for note completions, table completions, and all the completion tasks that you have in the IELTS listening. There will be word limits. For example, write one word, write not more than 2 words, write not more than 3 words. So in those instances, you must ensure that you pay attention to the word limit and let your answer be exactly what you've been asked to do. So if it says write not more than 2 words, it means you can write 2 words, you can write 1 word, but your answer cannot be more than 2 words. If it says write 1 word, then all your answers will be just 1 word. Watch out for paraphrase. You see, paraphrases it should have even been number 1 because it's one of the most important thing that you need to know about IELTS listening. To paraphrase means to express an idea using different words or different structures. For example, I am very hungry, I am famished. That's just using synonyms. I have expressed the same information, but I've used different words. That's the meaning of paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is something that happens a lot in the IELTS. Not even just the listening, but all through. You will need it. And so watch out for paraphrases such that when you're anticipating your answers in the IELTS listening, do not expect that the speaker or the speakers will provide the answers using the exact words or the exact structures that you will find in the question paper. So it will be paraphrased. It is usually paraphrased. Then watch out for distractors. What do I mean by distractors? Distractors are information given to distract you, to make you think that's the answer, but it's not the answer. For example, in note completion, it could be a date of birth, for example, and the speaker might say, oh, I was born 21st October, even though you already wrote 13th October, but that's not it. Something like that. So if you're not really listening and you hear 21st October, then later on you hear 13th October, you might think 13th October is the answer, whereas 13th October was just mentioned as a distractor. So distractors come in various ways. Sometimes in the MCQ, you would have, when you have a question and you have 3 options, option A, option B, option C. It is possible that the speaker says something about option B, which might be the answer, and then after that, he says something about option C only as a distractor. So watch out for distractors. These are the things that I teach and I explain to my students in great details, particularly those who are registered as my students. Then of course you want to ensure that you spell correctly. Spell correctly. It doesn't matter if you're spelling the British way or the American way, but spell correctly. Ensure effective time management. You must know how to manage your time well, because there will be moments in the IELTS listening where you'll be given some time to read the questions before the audio is played. At those moments, you must know what to do. You must know how to read the question. And not even just read, but understand the questions really well, so that you can be prepared for the audio you're about to listen to. And so knowing what to do at those moments is very crucial to determining your performance in the IELTS listening. Then of course, if you're not sure of your answer in the end, ensure that you guess. There is no negative marking. Generally, if you want to improve your listening skills, one of my top recommendations is that you listen to podcasts. Listen to podcasts where you have native speakers talking. That would improve your listening skills. And so these are just some top tips that you need to know about IELTS listening. Let's come to the IELTS reading. For the IELTS reading, you see, number one, you need to understand each question format. There are different question formats in the IELTS. You have the MCQ, you have the matching headings, you have matching information, you have true, false, not given, you have sentence completion, you have matching features. Now, you need to understand each of them. You see, knowing each of them will determine the technique and the approach to the question. So that's the first tip. You need to understand each of them. And then whatever it is that you're reading in the IELTS, whatever passage, whatever paragraph, whatever question that you're reading, always read to understand. There is the place of skimming, there is the place of scanning, but eventually you have to read to understand whatever it is you're reading. I tell my students, for every question that you miss in the IELTS reading, what most likely happened was that you did not understand what you read. So you must always read to understand. Answers mostly come in the same order as the questions. Yes, but not for all question types, but for most of the question types, the answers come in the same order as the questions. Then, of course, you need to use keywords to locate where to read. This is a skill and a technique that I teach my students very particularly. So you must know how to use keywords to locate exactly where to read so that you don't waste time reading places that are irrelevant to the question you're trying to solve. So you must learn how to use keywords to find exactly where to read. Observe word limits. Does it say one word? Does it say 2 words? Does it say not more than 3 words? Whatever it says, you have to observe it. Now choose words as they have been written in the passage. You can't write your own word. You can't change it. If the answer in the passage comes in the plural form, then your answer should also be in that plural form. You can't remove the S. If that's the answer indeed, then you will not be able to remove the S. If the answer comes in the past tense, if it's a past tense verb, it will have to be, in the passage, then it would have to be that same past tense verb that you put down as your answer. You can't create your own answers. You can't change the way the word has been spelled or the form of the word. So your answers are exactly as they've been written in the passage. Pay attention to paraphrases. There will always be paraphrases, and that cannot be overemphasized. And as a general recommendation, I would advise that you improve on your ability to read and understand. So once you improve on your ability to read and understand, then you cannot fail the IELTS. Yes, let's come to the IELTS writing. The IELTS writing is one of the most challenging for many people. And here are some tips that might make it easy for you. Number one, you have to understand the question and then answer the question. Oftentimes, for the essay writing, many people do not really understand the question, and what they write eventually, does not really answer the question. If you do that, it affects your score. What has the question asked you to do? Has it asked you to discuss some opinions and give your own opinion? Has it asked you to compare the advantages and the disadvantages of a situation? Has it asked you to provide reasons for something? Has it asked you for the causes and the effects? You must understand the question in specifics, and then your response must be relevant to the question. That's the very first thing. Second, you must show logical organization of ideas. Let your essay or your report or your letter look like a writing with a head, with a body and a tail. Let it be organized. Let ideas be arranged. Don't just lump ideas together anyhow. And of course, you want to write in paragraphs. Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and so on. Then use appropriate writing styles. What do I mean by that? If you're writing an essay, you should know that an essay is a formal form of writing. And so because of that, you want to adopt formal styles of writing. For example, you don't want to contract, you don't want to say can't. Instead, you would write, you don't want to write can't. Instead, you would write cannot. You don't want to write isn't, you would write instead is not. That's what I mean by formal, appropriate style. But if I were to be taking the IELTS General and, if I were writing an informal letter to a friend, then I could decide to use contracted words, can't, isn't, don't, because that's the style, that is the acceptable style for an informal letter. So you have to use the appropriate style for whatever it is you're writing. Also, your choice of words is part of what determines the style you're using. So if I'm writing an essay or a formal letter, then I wouldn't want to use words like happy. Instead, maybe I might say elated, excited. I wouldn't want to use a word like think. Maybe I would say speculate, or I wouldn't want to use words like ask. Maybe I would write inquire. So again, your choice of words is also part of what contributes to your style. And so you must know how to use the appropriate words, appropriate style of writing. Then of course, you need to paraphrase your sentences and use synonyms. Do not just keep repeating the same word again and again and again, except if it's, the subject matter which you can't actually synonymize. So you should use synonyms, paraphrase your expressions. You have said that this is an advantage. And the next time you're going to be saying that, don't use advantage. Say this is one of the benefits of, so that's you using synonyms and paraphrasing. Of course, you have to spell correctly and you have to write grammatical sentences. One of the very important things that we do in our lessons here is that I teach my students grammar, English grammar, rules of concord, singular verbs agreeing with singular subject, plural verbs agreeing with plural subject, knowing how to use appropriate tenses, the present tense, the present continuous tense, the perfect tenses, the perfect continuous, all these various tenses, punctuation marks, how to use your comma, how to use your full stop, using appropriate prepositions. All of this constitutes grammar. And so you must write grammatical sentences. Then you must use linkers where necessary. Linkers are, items, lexical items that you use to ensure coherence or cohesion as well in your writing. So use linkers. For example, if you want to give an example, in addition, if you're trying to come up with another point. On the other hand, finally, firstly, for instance, nonetheless, moreover, all of these are linkers that you must use appropriately. And of course, you must have an expert to review your writing so that he can tell you what you've done well and what you need to do better. Then let's come to the IELTS speaking. You see, for the IELTS speaking, my first top tip is that you have to be natural. Don't give memorized answers. Don't memorize answers. You have to go there and speak like people do in a natural setting or in a natural context. You have to be natural in your responses. Let it come naturally as you would out there in real life situations, So give natural answers. Do not give answers that you have memorized. Then expand your answers, but don't make them too long. There's a balance to your responses. Don't give answers that are too short. Don't give answers that are too long. Particularly in your part 1 and in your part 3. Of course, in your part 2, you know that you are timed. And so, there is a constraint as to how long you can speak. But for part one and part three, you're not necessarily timed per question. But again, you must know that for the entire part one and the entire part three, it won't last more than 5 minutes each. And so, because of that, you must ensure that your answers are balanced. They're not too long, otherwise, the examiner will interrupt you, and because the examiner needs to ask you more questions. So, don't give one sentence answers. At the same time, don't digress and carry on and carry on and carry on. No, keep your answers balanced. Understand each part of the test, understand the part one, understand the part two, and understand the part three and their requirements, and that would help you do better. Use words appropriately. Some of you would go memorize big words and big vocabulary, but yet use them wrongly. Use words in the right context. If you can, then use less common words. If you can. Don't pause often and for too long. So while you're talking, don't keep saying, nah. You must try as much as possible to be able to, continue a long strain of responses without too frequent pauses along the way and pauses that are too long. You want to be able to start, continue, and end at a continuous stretch. Let your answers be relevant. If you're being asked to talk about A, do not talk about B. If I ask you, did you learn to swim as a child? Do not talk about the fact that you can play football now. It doesn't relate. Your answers have got to be relevant. Whatever you've been asked is what you should respond to. Do not digress. If you're asked what your plans are for the future, don't talk about your past, talk about your future. And let the verb tenses reflect all that. Pronounce words accurately. That's another thing that we do in our classes. I teach my students how to pronounce words well. Consonant sounds, vowel sounds, appropriate stress on words. What syllables to stress. Educate and not educate. Afternoon and not afternoon. And many more like that. So you must learn how to pronounce your words well. Adjacent and not adjacent. So there are many words that people mispronounce and it affects their speaking score. And so one of the things that you can do to help you perform better in the IELTS speaking, as you can see, I got a 9 band in the IELTS speaking, is because I can pronounce and I do pronounce my words accurately. So you must learn how to pronounce words accurately. And of course, when you listen and speak more English every day, it improves your speaking. So these are top tips that you need to be aware of for you to ace the IELTS, regardless of whether you're taking the IELTS General or you're taking the IELTS Academic. So, what's next? Now that you've listened to all this, now that you've listened to these tips, what's next? What's next is for you to join our online classes. You see, I run online classes for you out there who are trying to take the IELTS test, whether it's the IELTS General, the IELTS Academic. I have got you covered. I have a training session where I can teach you all of these things, show you how to pronounce your words well, explain these tips to you in greater detail, treat past questions with you. I won't even just teach you, I'm going to show you how to locate your answers, how to get your answers, how to pass the IELTS, regardless of whatever band score you're looking for. Teach you how to write the IELTS writing task 1, the graph reporting, the map reporting, show you all the tricks and tips that is used in IELTS listening. We get students prepared for all this. And the class duration is for 6 weeks. The class days are on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Fridays. And on these days, there are 3 possible sessions that you can avail yourself of. You have the morning session, which runs from 10:30 to 12:30. There is the afternoon session, which starts by 1:30 to 3:30. And there's the evening session, which runs from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So, of course, you're only allowed to pick only one of these sessions. And once you're ready, the classes are held on Telegram. I myself will be teaching you how to pass the IELTS, getting you ready, treating past questions with you, sharing relevant resources and material to you, and teaching you English grammar, English pronunciation. I will be assessing your writing, showing you what to do to write better, and many more. So you should not procrastinate. I'm definitely going to advise you to make your registrations right away, because for this, I'm offering this at a discounted price. Usually my trainings are for 100,000 naira, but I have decided to drop these down to 40,000 naira to the first 20 or first 30 people who are going to grab this offer before I maybe change my mind and take up the price again. I know that the economy is challenging for many people, and that's why I'm beating this down. And so if you're there and you want to write the IELTS exam has become more expensive now. You do not want to throw away your money. So rather than just write the IELTS and not get a desired band score and then write another one, why don't you just save yourself that stress and attend tutorials and get prepared for the test, and then be done with the IELTS. So it is for 40,000 naira. Do not waste time. To get registered, all you need to do is to make payment to the bank details provided. That's it on the screen, the Access Bank Details Excellencia Hub. That's the name of the tutorial center. And then once you make payment, you're going to send the following information to this WhatsApp number. You're going to send your full name, you're going to send your proof of payment, you're going to let me know what exam module you're preparing for. And if you have any further inquiries whatsoever, you can also reach out to me on that WhatsApp number or via mail. So what are you waiting for? Do not let this opportunity pass you by. Write IELTS, pass IELTS once and for all. I'll be expecting you. Bye-bye.